Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Um, First of all, I would like to welcome Your Excellency Dr. Amir, Dr. Chandra Muzaffar, um, friends of Islamic Renaissance Front, the attendees of our webinar discussion today. I've for our discussion session today, the webinar discussion session today is the fourth session related to the situation of COVID-19 since mid-March that have quite a lot affected and changed the way most of us lived our life and the orders of our life and the orders of the world as well in some ways. Just a brief update on the situation that we are having as the MCO, the Movement Control Order in Malaysia, has been continued until the 12th of May. The trends of the situation tends to be getting a bit better. So if I could just touch on the previous sessions, we started with a discussion on democracy 3 weeks back with Dr. Nadir Hashimi, and then with Dr. Professor Shad Salim Faruqi, a discussion on COVID-19 and the rule of law, and followed by another session with Dr. Shad Salim Faruqi, again, together with Andrew Hu, with a focus on the situation of freedom of religion during the time of COVID-19. And as over the past several weeks, the development in regards to the threat of the COVID-19 have changed in some places in one way or another. The situation in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken, looking into the recent data published by the news sources, I'm looking at Astro Awani now, when it comes to the numbers of death, there's already more than 100 deaths in Malaysia, and I think it's almost around more than 5,000, 4,000 cases, is it? But at the same time, the numbers and the situations in globally has developed in a very much worrying ways, especially in the more developed countries, in the more developed nations. At the moment, the US, in the UK, France, Spain, and China as well. These are mainly the countries where most of the numbers, either when it comes to infections or also a number of deaths, has been peaking in the past several days. So looking into the nations as mostly known as the more developed nations of the world, and also the ruling order of the day, several interesting responses coming from these nations showing some interesting responses. To give you an example, the United States, the presidents of the United States, Donald Trump, when it comes to responding to the issue, responding this as a situation of war in the United States, at first putting some kind of blames towards China, and to some points, I think in the past 1 week, the blame has been shifted to the World Health Organization itself. While looking into some other countries in the European Union, the tendency to looking into the dire situation there also shows some kind of signs of disintegration within the country, and a lot of concerns related to poor coordinations when it comes to the health situation. And And what is mostly being addressed now is a lot regarding the concern on the economic condition, especially post um, COVID-19. A lot of scholars have already been describing the situation that could happen in the next coming weeks, months, or even up to a year or so. Is the situation which is worse than the Great Depression um, in the 1930s. So looking into a lot of the discussions and the signs of what's happening in the world today, it's not only about the situation of the world when it comes to the different countries on the threat of COVID-19, but what is also being put into question is the condition of the global order itself. It shows signs in some ways that the COVID-19 situation now is also shifting the global ruling order, which is looks like it is turning into some kind of a global disorder. And understanding that for the past, I would say, decades or perhaps even centuries, um, the general sense of the global order tends to be more being uh, signified by what some would call the modernity project of Western civilization as the main signifier of the more developed world and the more modern world and global order. The Western domination of the global order tends to be seen as the leader when it comes to the scientific and technology, the model of governance of the world, perhaps since post-colonial times. And uh, but the current situation now seems like these models of governance and the order of the world is showing its own weaknesses and vulnerabilities, particularly in terms of the situation of governance and public health. So within this setting, looking like, is this COVID-19 threat, uh, while as generally understood, seen as a public health threat, but could this situation of COVID-19 also indicate that these are signs of a possible disintegration of the global ruling order itself, as some scholars may have termed this as to be a situation of the decentering of the West within this global setting. So based on this brief introduction discussion, I would like to introduce our speakers today. I will start with introducing Dr. Chandra Muzaffar, definitely not an unfamiliar name when it comes to the whole discussion about global situations and global politics. I'll just give a brief introduction on Dr. Chandra Muzaffar. He's the president of the International Movement for a Just World, an international NGO based in Malaysia, which seeks to critique global injustice and to develop an alternative vision of a just and compassionate civilization guided by universal spiritual and moral values. Dr. Chandra has published extensively on civilizational dialogue, international politics, religion, human rights, and the Malaysian society. The author and editor of 32 books in English and Malay. Many of his writings have been translated into other languages. Among Dr. Chandra's latest publication, A World in Crisis, Is There a Cure? And Reflections on Malaysian Unity and Other Challenges. In 1977, Dr. Chandra founded a multi-ethnic social reform group called Aliran Kesedaran Malaysia, which he led for 14 years. Today, apart from his role in JUST, Dr. Chandra sits on the board of a number of international NGOs concerned with social justice and civilizational dialogue. Dr. Chandra was professor and director of the Center for Civilizational Dialogue, University of Malaya from 1997 to 1999, and a professor of global studies at University Science Malaya from 2007 to 2012. Dr. Chandra travels abroad frequently, giving lectures and speaking at seminars and conferences. He's also a regular speaker at meeting at home in Malaysia. Dr. Chandra, are you ready for for your talk?